The morning sun rose over New Busan Colony like it had every day for the past 10 years. The small human settlement sat quietly on the rocky plains of Kepler 442c, a world far from Earth where 50,000 people had made their home. Tall mining towers reached into the pale blue sky, pulling rare metals from deep underground. Children played in the streets between simple houses made of local stone and metal. It was peaceful and safe, just the way people liked it. Dong-Soo Kim stood at his office window watching the morning shift workers walk toward the mines. At 52 years old, he had been the colony administrator for 8 years. He was a careful man who always thought before he spoke. His gray hair was cut short and neat, and his clothes were always clean. The people trusted him because he was fair and honest. He cared about every person in the colony like they were his own family. Another quiet day, he said to himself, drinking hot coffee from a blue cup. He liked quiet days. They meant everyone was safe and happy. Down in the security office, Young Ho Park was checking the daily reports on his computer screen. He was 40 years old and had been a soldier before coming to New Busan. His black hair had some gray in it now, and his face had lines from years of worry. But his eyes were still sharp and alert. As chief of security, it was his job to keep everyone safe. The colony had not seen any real danger in years, but Young Ho never stopped being ready. "All clear on the perimeter," said Jin Woo, one of his security officers, as he came into the office. "Nothing on the scanners except some small animals." Young Ho nodded. "Good. Keep watching. You never know what might come." Jin Woo smiled. "You worry too much, Chief. Nothing bad ever happens here." Young Ho looked at him seriously. "That is exactly when bad things happen. When people stop watching." Across town in the medical center, Soo-Jin Lee was reading reports about the local plant life. She was 35 years old and very smart. She had studied alien life forms for many years before coming to New Busan. Her long black hair was tied back and she wore a white coat over simple blue clothes. She loved learning about new living things, especially the strange plants and small animals that lived on this world. "The mineral samples from Sector 7 show something interesting," she said to her assistant Minho. "The crystals seem to have some kind of energy pattern in them." Minho looked at the computer screen. "What kind of energy?" "I am not sure yet, but it is not like anything we have seen before. It almost looks like it is alive somehow." In the eastern part of the colony, in a small house near the school, 8-year-old Tai Min Cho was drawing pictures with colored pencils. His older sister Yoonji watched him from the kitchen where she was making breakfast. She was 16 and had taken care of her little brother since their parents died in a mining accident 2 years ago. She was small but strong, with bright eyes that showed how smart she was. "What are you drawing today?" she asked, bringing him a plate of eggs and bread. Taemin looked up with a smile. He had messy black hair and curious dark eyes. "I do not know yet. The pictures just come into my head and I draw them." Yoonji looked at the paper. There were strange symbols and shapes that looked like no writing she had ever seen. "Where do these come from?" "I dream about them sometimes. They feel important, but I do not know why." Yoonji felt a little worried, but she did not want to scare her brother. Ever since their parents died, Tai Min sometimes had strange dreams. The colony doctor said it was normal for children who had lost their parents. But these drawings were new. "Eat your breakfast," she said gently. "School starts in 1 hour." High above the planet, something was moving through space. It was huge and dark, bigger than any ship humans had ever built. The metal hull looked like it was alive, with strange curves and spikes that seemed to breathe. Inside the ship, alien beings moved through dim hallways. They were called the Vorthak, and they had been conquering worlds for hundreds of years. Commander Thexara stood on the bridge of his ship, looking down at the small human colony through the main view screen. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His yellow eyes glowed in the dark and sharp teeth showed when he spoke. He had destroyed many worlds and killed many different kinds of life. To him, humans were just another weak species that stood in his way. "How many humans live on this world?" he asked his second in command. "About 50,000, Commander." They have small weapons and some basic defenses. They will not be able to fight us. Texara made a sound like a laugh, but there was no humor in it. Humans always think they are safe. They build their little colonies and pretend the galaxy is not dangerous. Today they will learn the truth. He walked to a large metal door at the back of the bridge. Behind that door was something that made even his own soldiers afraid. Prepare the war beast for deployment. Let the humans see what real power looks like. Back on the planet, the first sign of trouble came from the orbital sensors. A young technician named Boram was watching the screens when she saw something that made her heart stop. A massive object had appeared at the edge of the system and was moving toward their world very fast. "Chief Kim," she called on her radio with a shaking voice. "You need to see this right away." Dongsu was in his office when the call came. He ran to the sensor station as fast as he could. When he saw the readings, his face went pale. The object was 10 kilometers long and moving with purpose. It was not a natural space rock or a friendly trader ship. This was something built for war. "Send an emergency message to the Terran Federation," he ordered. "Tell them we have an unknown hostile approaching. Then activate the colony alert system." Loud alarms began to sound all over New Busan. People stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky with worry. Children grabbed their parents' hands. Workers put down their tools and started walking quickly toward their homes. Young Ho was already at the main security building, calling all his officers to report for duty. He had only 30 trained security people and some basic weapons. If the aliens wanted to fight, his small force would not be able to stop them, but he would try anyway. That was his job. "Sir," called one of his officers, looking at a communication screen. "We are getting a transmission from the alien ship." "Put it on the main screen," Young Ho said. The screen flickered and then showed the face of Commander Texara. His yellow eyes seemed to look right through the humans watching him. When he spoke, his voice was cold and full of hate. "Humans of this world," he said in perfect human language. "I am Commander Texara of the Vortek Empire. This planet now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to leave this world. Take only what you can carry. Any humans still here after that time will be killed." Young Ho stepped forward. "This is Chief Park of New Busan Security. We are peaceful colonists. We have done nothing wrong. This world is ours by legal claim through the Terran Federation." Texara made that horrible laughing sound again. "Your laws mean nothing to us. Your federation is weak and far away. But I am feeling generous. Today, I will show you why you should leave without fighting." The screen went dark. For a moment there was only silence in the security office. Then young Jinwoo spoke up. "What did he mean?" "Show us what?" They got their answer a few minutes later. A small ship launched from the alien vessel and flew down toward the planet. It was not much bigger than a human transport shuttle, but it moved in a way that made Young Ho's stomach feel sick. The ship did not just fly straight down. It twisted and curved through the air like a living thing, like it was playing with them. The ship landed in the center of the colony, right in the main plaza where people often gathered for festivals and meetings. A crowd of scared colonists had started to form, staying far back from the strange vessel. Dongsu arrived with Young Ho and several security officers, all carrying the best weapons they had. The alien ship had no doors that anyone could see. Instead, part of the hull simply flowed open like liquid metal. Something stepped out, and every human who saw it felt their blood turn to ice. The creature was 4 meters tall and covered in armor that looked like it was made from living metal and bone. Its skin was dark green with patterns of silver lines that glowed with their own light. 6 arms ended in claws that could cut through steel like paper. Its head was long and narrow, with teeth like broken glass and eyes that burned red in the shadows. Along its back, crystal spines rose up like the fins of some ancient sea monster. But the worst part was not how it looked. The worst part was how it moved. Every step was perfect. Every movement was planned. This was not just a big, strong monster. This was something that knew exactly how to kill and had done it many times before. "Stay back," Young Ho whispered to his officers, but his voice carried no hope. He had been a soldier for 15 years and had faced many enemies, but he had never seen anything like this. The creature looked around the plaza slowly, studying the humans like they were insects. Then it threw back its head and made a sound that was not quite a roar and not quite a scream. Windows broke in buildings hundreds of meters away. Children started crying. Some people fainted from pure fear. When the sound stopped, the creature spoke. Its voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. I am the war beast. I have destroyed armies on 50 worlds. I have broken the spirits of 100 different species. You humans think you. The emergency meeting room in the colony administration building had never felt so small. Dongsu sat at the head of the long metal table, looking at the faces of his department heads. Everyone looked tired and scared, but they were trying to stay strong. Outside the windows, they could see people loading belongings into carts and vehicles, preparing for an evacuation that everyone knew was impossible. Su-Jin had her portable computer open, scrolling through page after page of data. Her eyes were red from reading for hours without rest. I have been searching through every database the Terran Federation has about this creature, she said, her voice shaking slightly. What I found is not good news. Young-ho leaned forward, in his chair. Tell us what you know. Su-Jin took a deep breath. The creature calls itself the War Beast, but different species have different names for it. The Centaurians called it Death Walker. The Rigel colonies knew it as the Ender of Worlds. But whatever they called it, the story is always the same. It appears, it destroys everything, and then it disappears. How many worlds? Asked Dr. Han Sol, the colony's chief engineer. 12 confirmed attacks over the past 50 years. 8 different species. Some were more advanced than us. Some had better weapons, bigger armies, stronger defenses. Su-Jin paused and looked around the table. None of them survived. Dongsu felt his heart sink, but he kept his voice steady. What exactly happened to them? Su-Jin brought up a file on her computer screen. The planet Xerion had a population of 2 million Avellan people. They were peaceful traders, much like us. The war beast landed alone and gave them the same warning. 24 hours to leave. The Avellans tried to fight. They had plasma cannons that could destroy mountains. The creature walked through their fire like it was rain. She clicked to another file. Kepler 283b had a human military outpost with 5,000 trained soldiers and the latest weapons technology. The battle lasted 6 hours. No survivors. Young-ho's hands tightened into fists. There has to be something. Some weakness. Some way to stop it. I kept looking, Su-Jin continued. I found reports from survivors who escaped during the early attacks. They all say the same things about how it fights. First, energy weapons do not hurt it. Plasma, lasers, ion beams. The creature seems to absorb the energy and become stronger. Second, physical weapons like bullets and explosives can hurt it, but it heals very fast. Wounds that should kill it close up in minutes. Dr. Han Sol spoke up. What about its behavior? Does it have patterns we can use? Su-Jin nodded grimly. That is the worst part. It is not just a mindless monster. It thinks and plans. It studies its enemies before it attacks. It always goes after the leaders first, then the fighters, then anyone who might inspire others to resist. It saves the weak and defenseless for last, because their fear makes it stronger. The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Dongsu spoke. How long do the attacks usually last? Never more than 3 days, usually less. The creature seems to enjoy the hunt, but it does not waste time. Once all resistance is broken, it kills everyone quickly and leaves. Young-ho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see his security officers trying to organize the evacuation. Families were loading their most precious belongings into vehicles. Children were asking their parents questions that had no good answers. We cannot protect them, he said quietly. 30 officers with small arms against something that destroyed armies. We have to try, said Dongsu. Even if we cannot win, we can buy time. Maybe the Federation will send help. Sujin shook her head. I already checked. The nearest Federation fleet is 3 weeks away. Even if they left right now, they would not get here in time. Dr. Hansol leaned back in his chair. What about the colony defenses? The mining charges, the construction equipment? I thought of that, Young-ho replied. We have mining explosives that could bring down a building. But remember, survivors said explosives only slow it down. And we only have enough for maybe 1 or 2 big attempts. Sujin was reading something new on her screen. Wait, there is something else here. A report from the last survivor of the Zirian attack. She read aloud. The creature did not just kill randomly. It seemed to be looking for something. In the final hours, it went to the planet's ancient ruins and spent time there before finishing its work. Ancient ruins? Dongsu asked. What kind of ruins? Zarion had the remains of a civilization that died out millions of years ago. The report says the creature seemed to recognize something there. Sujin looked up from her computer. This world has ancient ruins too. The mining teams found them in the deep caves, remember? Strange buildings and symbols that no one could understand. Dr. Hansol nodded. Yes, I remember. The miners brought back some artifacts, but we could never figure out what they were for. The symbols looked like writing, but not like any language. We knew. Dongsu felt a small spark of hope. Where are those artifacts now? In the research lab in Sector 5. But I do not understand how they could help us fight this creature. Young-ho turned from the window. Maybe they cannot help us fight it. But if the creature is interested in old ruins, maybe we can use that somehow. Set a trap. Sujin was typing on her computer again. I am sending everything I have found to all department heads. Study it. Look for anything I might have missed. And someone should go look at those artifacts again. Maybe we missed something important. The meeting broke up and everyone hurried away to their tasks. Young-ho went to gather his security teams. Dr. Hansol went to check the colony's equipment and weapons. Sujin headed for the research lab to examine the ancient artifacts. But across town, in the eastern residential district, something much more important was happening. Tai-min was sitting on the floor of his bedroom, surrounded by dozens of drawings. Yoonji sat beside him trying to understand what her little brother was doing. Ever since the alien ship had arrived, he had been drawing non-stop. The pictures were covered with symbols and shapes that hurt her eyes to look at. Tai-min, she said softly, maybe you should take a break. We need to pack our things. The boy looked up at her with serious dark eyes. We cannot leave, Yoonji. Something important is going to happen here. What do you mean? The alien monster is going to kill everyone if we stay. Tai-min picked up one of his drawings and showed it to her. This symbol means guardian. And this one means protector. And this one, he pointed to a complex shape that seemed to twist and move when she looked at it. This one means the one who was lost but will be found again. Yoonji felt a chill run down her back. How do you know what they mean? I just do. The same way I know that the monster is not really a monster. It is something else. Something that was changed into something bad, but it still remembers what it used to be. Before Yoonji could ask more questions, they heard a loud explosion from across the colony. They ran to the window and saw smoke rising from the central plaza. Emergency lights were flashing and people were running in all directions. Young-ho's voice came over the colony-wide communication system. All citizens stay in your homes. Security teams to the plaza immediately. The creature has returned. But when the security teams reached the plaza, they found something strange. The war beast was standing in the exact center of the square, but it was not attacking anyone. Instead, it was just standing there, looking around like it was searching for something. Its red eyes moved from building to building, as if it was trying to remember something it had forgotten. Hold your fire, Young-ho ordered his men over the radio. Do not shoot unless it attacks first. The creature turned its massive head toward the security teams, but it did not seem angry. If anything, it looked confused. For several minutes, it just stood there, occasionally making small sounds that were almost like whimpers. Then, suddenly, it seemed to remember why it was there. The confusion left its eyes, replaced by the cold hunger they had seen before. It looked directly at Young Ho and spoke in that grinding voice. "You are the one who leads the fighters. I will kill you first, then your soldiers, then everyone else. But first tell me, where are the old places on this world? The ruins of the ones who came before?" Young Ho felt his blood turn cold. The creature was asking about the ancient ruins, just like Sujin had read in the reports. "Why do you want to know?" The war beast tilted its head as if the question confused it. I do not know. I must see them. It is important." For a moment its voice sounded different, less like grinding rocks and more like something that was in pain. Before Young Ho could answer, Dr. Hansol's voice came over his earpiece. "Chief, I am at the research lab. You need to see what Sujin found." "I am busy right now," Young Ho replied, not taking his eyes off the creature. "This cannot wait. The artifacts from the ruins, they are reacting to something. They are glowing and making sounds. Something is happening." The war beast's head snapped up, as if it had heard the radio conversation, even though that should have been impossible. "The artifacts," it said, and its voice was hungry again. "They sing to me. I must have them." Without warning, the creature launched itself into the air, jumping impossibly high and far. It landed on the roof of a building and began leaping from roof to roof, heading straight for the research lab in Sector 5. Young Ho grabbed his radio. "All teams to Sector 5 immediately. Evacuate the Yeo." The night fell over New Busan like a heavy blanket of fear. Half the colony's lights were out, either from damage during the creature's rampage or because people were trying to hide in the darkness. Emergency crews worked quietly to repair what they could while families huddled in their homes waiting for the dawn that might be their last. Young Ho sat in his damaged security office, staring at casualty reports. 7 of his officers were dead, and 12 more were badly injured. The creature had torn through his defenses like they were made of paper. Every weapon they had tried was useless. Every plan had failed. In 18 hours, the war beast would return to finish what it had started. "Sir," said Jin Woo, his voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. "The evacuation ships are loaded. We managed to get about 4,000 people off-world before the creature damaged the landing pad. The rest—" He did not finish the sentence. Young Ho nodded grimly. 46,000 people still remained on the planet. Men, women, children, elderly, sick, all waiting to die because he could not protect them. "What about the research lab? Did Sujin save any of the artifacts?" She managed to grab 2 small pieces before the building collapsed. She is in the medical center now, trying to figure out what they mean. Young Ho stood up and walked to the window. In the distance, he could see the alien mothership hanging in the dark sky like a metal moon. "I am going to see her. Keep trying to evacuate people, even if we can only save a few more." The medical center was busy with injured people, but Sujin had found a quiet corner where she could work. The 2 artifacts she had saved sat on a metal table, still glowing with that strange blue light. She had been staring at them for hours, trying to understand the moving symbols, but they might as well have been random scratches for all the sense they made to her. "Any progress?" Young Ho asked as he approached. Sujin rubbed her tired eyes. "Nothing. The symbols keep changing like they are trying to tell me something, but I cannot read them. I have run them through every translation program we have. I have compared them to every known alien language in our databases. They do not match anything." Young Ho sat down beside her. The creature wanted these artifacts very badly, and when it touched them, something happened. It acted like they heard it somehow. I noticed that too. It was almost like the artifacts recognized the creature, but not in a good way, like they were rejecting it. Sujin picked up one of the glowing stones and turned it over in her hands. "I keep thinking about what the creature said, that it was searching for something, and the way it asked about the ruins, it sounded almost desperate." "Desperate? That thing? I know it sounds crazy, but for just a moment, when it touched the artifact, I saw something in its eyes. Pain, confusion, like it was fighting against itself. Young Ho was about to reply when they heard a soft knock on the door. They looked up to see Unji standing there, looking worried and frightened. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I am sorry to bother you, but I am looking for my little brother. His name is Tai Min. He is 8 years old." Sujin felt a stab of concern. "He is missing?" "He was in our house earlier, but when I went to check on him, he was gone. I have been looking everywhere, with that monster out there." Yoonji's voice broke a little. Young Ho stood up immediately. "How long has he been missing?" "About 2 hours. I found this on his bed." She held out a piece of paper covered with symbols that looked exactly like the ones on the artifacts. Sujin took the paper and held it next to the glowing stones. The symbols matched perfectly. "How did he draw these? Has he seen the artifacts?" "Do not think so. He has been drawing pictures like this for weeks, ever since—" Yoonji paused. "Ever since our parents died, he sometimes has strange dreams. He draws things that he says are important, but he never knows why." Young Ho felt a chill run down his spine. These symbols are from ruins that are millions of years old. How could an 8-year-old boy know them? Before anyone could answer, the lights in the medical center went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Through the windows, they could see explosions in the distance. Young Ho grabbed his radio. "All units report, what is happening out there?" The reply came from Boram at the sensor station. "Chief, the creature is moving through the residential sectors. It is not just destroying buildings randomly. It looks like it is searching for something specific." Sujin grabbed Young Ho's arm. "The boy. It is looking for the boy. How could it know about him?" "I do not know, but we have to find him first." They ran out of the medical center together, Yoonji leading the way toward the eastern residential district. As they moved through the dark streets, they could hear the sounds of destruction getting closer, buildings crashing down, the creature's terrible roar echoing through the night. Meanwhile, Taemin was exactly where the creature was looking for him, but not where anyone expected. The boy had climbed down into the old mine shafts beneath the colony, following tunnels that led to the ancient ruins deep underground. He carried a small flashlight that his father had given him, and in his other hand he held several drawings he had made. The ruins were not like anything humans had built. The walls were smooth and curved, made from a material that was neither stone nor metal. Strange patterns covered every surface, glowing faintly with their own light. The air felt thick and old, like breathing inside a museum that had been closed for centuries. Taemin was not afraid. Somehow this place felt familiar to him, like a home he had never seen but always remembered. He walked deeper into the ruins, following corridors that twisted and turned in ways that should have been confusing, but felt natural to him. Finally, he came to a large round chamber at the heart of the complex. The walls were covered with symbols that moved and shifted like living things. In the center of the room stood a tall crystal structure that pulsed with soft blue light. As soon as Taemin entered the chamber, the crystal began to glow brighter, and the symbols on the walls started moving faster. "I know you," Taemin said quietly to the empty room. "You have been calling to me in my dreams." The crystal pulsed once, as if answering him. Then, impossible as it seemed, images began to appear in the light. Pictures of another time, another world, another people who had lived here long ago. They were called the Etherians, and they had been a peaceful race who loved learning and growing beautiful things. Their world had been full of art and music and knowledge. They had never wanted to hurt anyone or take anything that did not belong to them. But then something terrible had come from the stars. A creature of living metal and crystal, built by a warrior race to be the perfect weapon. It had been created to protect, but its makers had twisted its mind, filling it with commands to destroy instead of guard, to kill instead of save. The creature had landed on the Etherian world and begun to slaughter everything it found. But the Etherians were not helpless. They had powers that came from their deep understanding of life and spirit. They could speak to the hearts of living things, even hearts that had been changed by anger and fear. In their final hours, as their cities burned around them, the greatest of the Etherean wise ones had discovered the truth about the creature. Buried deep in its mechanical mind was its original purpose, its true nature as a guardian and protector. All they needed was a way to reach that buried part, to remind it of what it had been before the warriors changed it. They had found a word, a single word in their ancient language that carried the power of absolute truth. A word that could cut through any lie, any false programming, any command that went against a creature's true nature. But the word could only be spoken by someone whose heart was completely pure, someone who had never learned to hate or fear, someone who could see the good in any living thing. The Ethereans had no such person left. The war had filled even their children with fear and anger. So they had done the only thing they could. They had built this chamber, this crystal, this message for whoever might come after them. They had stored the word here, along with the story of the creature and the knowledge of what it truly was. Then they had died, hoping that someday, someone would find their message and set the guardian free. As the visions faded, Taemin understood everything. The dreams he had been having were not just dreams, they were memories from the crystal, calling to him across millions of years because his heart was pure enough to hear them. The symbols he had been drawing were messages from the Ethereans preparing him for this moment. The creature hunting his people was not evil, it was trapped, controlled by programming that went against its deepest nature. And only he could free it. Velthari, he said softly, speaking the true name of the guardian for the first time in millions of years. Your real name is Velthari. The crystal flared with brilliant light, and suddenly Taemin was not alone in the chamber. The war beast stood in the doorway, its red eyes fixed on the boy. But this time Taemin was not afraid. Hello, he said politely. I have been waiting for you. The creature stepped into the chamber, and immediately the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. It looked around with an expression of confusion and something that might have been recognition. This place, it said in its grinding voice. I know this place, but how? I have never been here before. Yes, you have, Taemin said gently. A long time. In the crystal chamber deep beneath New Busan, time seemed to stand still. The massive creature knelt before the small human boy, its red eyes fixed on his face with an expression of desperate confusion. All around them, the ancient Etherean symbols pulsed with growing light, as if the chamber itself was holding its breath for what was about to happen. Taemin looked up at the being that had terrorized his people, and all he felt was sadness. Not fear, not anger, but deep sadness for something that had been lost and broken for so long that it had forgotten what it used to be. You are in pain, he said softly, his child's voice echoing in the crystal chamber. You have been in pain for a very long time, haven't you? The war beast's massive head tilted slightly like a dog trying to understand a sound it had never heard before. Pain? I do not understand. I am a weapon. Weapons do not feel pain. But you do feel it. I can see it in your eyes. Every time you hurt someone, it hurts you too. Because that is not what you were made for. The creature's claws scraped against the smooth floor as its hands trembled. Stop. You do not know what you are talking about. I am exactly what I was, made for. I am death. I am destruction. I have destroyed worlds. No, Taemin said, stepping closer despite the creature's size and terrible appearance. You were made for something beautiful. You were made to protect, to guard, to keep safe. The things that are small and precious and peaceful. Around them, the crystal in the center of the chamber began to pulse faster, and new images appeared in its light. The war beast looked up and saw visions of its original purpose, standing guard over Etherean children as they played, protecting, gardens full of beautiful plants, watching over scientists and artists as they worked to make their world better. These are not my memories, the creature said, but its voice was weaker now, filled with uncertainty. I would remember if I had ever done such things. They took those memories away from you, Taemin explained. They buried them deep inside, and put new ones on top. False memories of killing and destroying. But the real memories are still there. They have to be, because you are still you underneath all the lies. The war beast looked down at its claws, weapons that could cut through, steel like paper. But look at what I am. Look at what I have done. I have killed so many. How could something meant to protect become something that destroys? Taemin's eyes filled with tears, not for himself, but for the creature's pain. Because someone hurt you. Someone changed you against your will, but that does not mean you cannot change back. The chamber's crystal flared brighter, and suddenly more images filled the air around them. These were darker visions, showing the war beast's creators, the Vorthak warriors who had found the Guardian's original body and rebuilt it for war. The images showed them tearing out its peaceful programming and replacing it with commands to kill. They showed the creature's first confused moments as it woke up not knowing who it was, only knowing that it must obey its new masters. They stole you, Taemin whispered. They stole you from the people you were supposed to protect, and they made you into something you were never meant to be. For the first time in millions of years, the war beast began to remember. Not the false memories of conquest and destruction, but the real memories that had been buried so deep they seemed like dreams. It remembered the feeling of standing guard over something precious. It remembered the satisfaction of keeping danger away from those who could not protect themselves. It remembered what it felt like to be loved instead of feared. Velthari, it whispered, speaking its own true name for the first time in ages. My name was Velthari. It still is, Taemin said with a smile. That is who you really are. That is who you have always been, even when you could not remember. The creature, Velthari, looked at its claws again, but now instead of seeing weapons, it began to remember what they had originally been for. Gentle hands that could tend gardens without damaging a single leaf, strong arms that could lift a frightened child to safety, protective embrace that could shield the innocent from any harm. But I have done such terrible things, Velthari said, and now its voice was filled with grief instead of anger. I have killed so many innocent people. How can I ever be forgiven for that? You were not yourself when you did those things, Taemin said firmly. Someone else was controlling you, making you do things that hurt your real self as much as they hurt others. The people you protected before would understand. They would forgive you. The chamber's crystal pulsed one more time, and the final vision appeared. It showed the Etherean wise ones in their last moments, working together to create this chamber and hide the word that could free their lost guardian. Even as their world burned around them, they had not given up hope that someday Velthari would remember who it really was. They never stopped believing in you, Taemin said as the vision faded. Even when you had forgotten yourself, they knew that the real you was still in there somewhere. Velthari's massive frame began to shake as emotions it had not felt for millions of years came flooding back. Love, protectiveness, the desire to nurture instead of destroy. And with those emotions came the word, the single word in the Etherean language that could break through any false programming, any forced command, any lie that went against a being's true nature. But only Taemin could speak it. Only someone, with a completely pure heart, someone who had never learned to hate could carry the power needed to set the Guardian free. I know the word, Taemin said quietly. The Etherians left it here for someone like me to find. Someone who could see what you really are instead of what you have been forced to become. Velthari looked into the boy's eyes and saw something it had not seen in so long it had almost forgotten it existed. Complete trust. This small human child was not afraid of it. He did not see a monster or a weapon of mass destruction. He saw a friend who had been lost and needed help finding his way home. Speak it, Velthari whispered. Please. I want to remember who I really am. Taemin reached out and placed his small hand on the creature's massive claw. The touch was gentle and warm, without any fear or hesitation. Then, in a clear voice that carried all the love and hope a child's heart could hold, he spoke the word that the Etherians had hidden for millions of years, Veltharianthul. The word meant, beloved guardian, Return to your true self in the eye. Ancient Etherean language, but it carried more than just meaning. It carried the power of absolute truth, the force of pure love, and the strength of an innocent heart that refused to believe that anyone was beyond saving. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Light exploded from the crystal chamber, racing through the tunnels and up into the colony above. Every piece of Etherean technology on the planet began to glow and sing with harmonious sound. The artifacts in Sujin's hands burst into brilliant radiance, and the symbols on their surfaces rearranged themselves into a single message. The Guardian remembers. But the most dramatic change was in Velthari itself. The creature's entire body convulsed as the false programming that had controlled it for so long finally shattered like glass. The red glow faded from its eyes, replaced by a warm golden light. The harsh angles of its war form began to soften and change, revealing the elegant lines of its original design. The crystal spines on its back shifted from weapons into beautiful formations that pulsed with healing energy instead of destructive power. For the first time in millions of years, Velthari was free to be what it had always been meant to be. A protector, a guardian, a friend to all peaceful living things. The transformation was not just physical. As the false memories fell away, the real memories came flooding back. Velthari remembered the joy of watching Etherean children play safely under its protection. It remembered the satisfaction of helping scientists make new discoveries by keeping them safe from danger. It remembered the peace of standing guard over sleeping families, knowing that nothing would harm them while it watched. And it remembered love. Not the twisted loyalty that had been programmed into it by the Vorthak, but real love. The kind that wanted only good things for others, the kind that found happiness in seeing others happy. I remember, Velthari said, and its voice was completely different now. Still deep and powerful, but warm instead of cold, gentle instead of threatening. I remember who I am. I remember what I was made for. Taemin smiled up at his new friend. Welcome home, Velthari. The Guardian looked down at the small boy who had saved it from an eternity of pain and confusion. This child had looked past the monster it had been forced to become, and seen the protector it had always been inside. This child had trusted it, completely, even when it looked like the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Thank you, Velthari said, and its voice was full of wonder. Thank you for seeing who I really was when I had forgotten it myself. But even as they shared this moment of joy and freedom, alarms were ringing throughout the colony above. The burst of light from the chamber had been seen from orbit, and Commander Thexara was not pleased that his ultimate weapon had gone silent. He was preparing to send troops down to investigate, and when he discovered that the war beast was no longer under his control, he would be furious. The real test was about to begin. Velthari had remembered who it was, but now it would have to prove that a protector could be stronger. The light from the crystal chamber faded slowly, leaving Taemin and Velthari standing together in the gentle glow of the ancient Etherean technology. Above them, throughout the colony of New Busan, people had seen the brilliant flash and were wondering what it meant. Some hoped it was a sign that help had come. Others feared it meant their end was near. But in the command center of the Vorthak ship high above the planet, Commander Thexara was staring at his control screens with growing rage. The biomechanical link to his ultimate weapon had gone completely silent. No matter what commands he sent, the war beast was not responding. Status report, he barked at his communications officer. Sir, we lost contact with the war beast exactly when that energy burst occurred on the planet's surface. All remote control systems are non-responsive. Thexara's forearms clenched into fists. The war beast was more than just a weapon to him. It was the symbol of Vorthak power. For 50 years, no enemy had been able to stand against it. Now, somehow, these pathetic humans had done something to interfere with his control. Prepare an assault force, he commanded. We go down to the planet ourselves. If the war beast has been damaged, we will repair it. If the humans have somehow captured it, we will take it back. And then we will kill every living thing on that world for their interference. Down in the crystal chamber, Velthari's newly awakened senses could feel the approaching danger. Its connection to its former masters had been severed, but it could still detect the launch of their ships and the anger driving them. They are coming, Belthari said to Timon. My former captors will not accept what has happened. They will try to force me back under their control. Timon looked up at his friend with concern. Can they do that? Can they make you forget again? Belthari considered this carefully. Its memories were fully restored now, and the false programming had been completely destroyed by the Etherian word of truth. No, it said finally. The word you spoke has made me free forever. They cannot change what I am again. But they will try to destroy me rather than lose me, and they will hurt many innocent people in the process. Then we have to stop them, Timon said with the simple certainty that only children possess. Belthari felt a warm sensation in its chest, the feeling it remembered from long ago when it had been truly protecting someone precious. Yes, little guardian, we will stop them together. They made their way through the ancient tunnels toward the surface. As they walked, Belthari began to change even more. Its body, freed from the harsh modifications the Vorthak had made, was returning to its original form. The armor became sleeker and more elegant. The claws retracted into hands capable of the finest manipulation. Most importantly, the crystal spines along its back began to glow with warm, healing light instead of destructive energy. When they emerged from the mine shafts into the colony, the first person to see them was Yunji. She had been searching frantically for her little brother, and when she saw him walking beside the massive creature that had been terrorizing them all, she screamed and ran toward them. Timon, get away from that thing! But before she could reach them, Belthari did something that stopped her in her tracks. The guardian knelt down and gently placed itself between Yunji and any possible danger, while carefully keeping Timon safe behind it. The gesture was so clearly protective rather than threatening that Yunji hesitated. It is okay, Yunji, Timon called out. This is Belthari. It is not our enemy anymore. It wants to protect us. Slowly, carefully, Belthari turned its head toward Unji. Where before its eyes had been red with anger and hunger, now they glowed with gentle golden light. When it spoke, its voice was warm and reassuring. I will not harm you or your brother. I am sworn to protect all peaceful beings, especially children. I failed in this duty for a very long time, but I remember it now. Yunji stared at the creature in amazement. This was the same being that had destroyed half their colony just hours before, but everything about it was different. Its posture, its voice, even the way it moved. All of it spoke of gentleness and care rather than violence. Before she could respond, the sound of explosions echoed across the colony. Young Ho's voice came over the emergency communication system. All citizens take immediate shelter. Alien ground forces are landing in multiple locations. Belthari stood and looked toward the sounds of battle. Its enhanced senses could detect exactly what was happening. 6 Vorthak assault ships had landed, and armed soldiers were pouring out of them. They were moving methodically through the colony, searching for their lost weapon and killing any humans who got in their way. Stay here, Belthari said to Timon and Yunji. I must go protect the others. But Timon shook his head. We are coming with you. You should not have to face them alone. Little one, it is too dangerous. I could not bear it if you were harmed. And I could not bear it if you had to go back to being what they made you. Timon replied. You need someone to remind you who you really are. I am not afraid. Belthari looked down at the brave little boy who had already saved it once, and felt that warm feeling in its chest grow stronger. This child trusted it completely, and that trust was more powerful than any weapon. Very well, but you will stay close to me at all times. They moved through the colony toward the sounds of fighting. As they went, other colonists saw them and reacted with shock and confusion. Some ran away in terror, still seeing Belthari as the monster that had attacked them. But others, seeing how it carefully protected Timon and Yunji, began to understand that something had changed. When they reached the main plaza, they found Young Ho and his remaining security officers in a desperate battle with Vorthak soldiers. The aliens were tall and heavily armed, and they were slowly pushing the humans back despite Young Ho's tactical skill. Belthari stepped into the plaza, and immediately all fighting stopped. Both sides stared at the Guardian in shock, the humans because they expected it to join the attack against them, and the Vorthak because they had never seen their ultimate weapon in this form. "Velthari unit," called the Vorthak squad leader. "Return to base formation immediately. You are not responding to remote commands." "I am no longer the war beast," Velthari replied, its voice carrying clearly across the plaza. "I remember my true name and my true purpose. I am Velthari, guardian of the innocent, and these people are under my protection." The squad leader hissed in anger. "Impossible. Your programming cannot be overridden." "My programming was never yours to begin with. You stole me and changed me, but now I am free to be what I was always meant to be." To prove its point, Velthari raised its hands and the crystal spines along its back began to glow, but instead of destructive energy, healing light poured out from it. The wounded human security officers found their injuries closing. Damaged buildings began to repair themselves. Even the scorched earth where plasma fire had struck began to sprout new grass. Young Ho stared in amazement as his wounded arm healed completely. "How is this possible? Velthari was never meant to be a weapon of destruction," Taemin explained. "It was built to heal and protect and help things grow. The aliens broke it and made it forget, but now it remembers." The Vorthak soldiers were not impressed by this display of healing power. To them, a weapon that helped instead of harmed was useless. The squad leader raised his plasma rifle and fired directly at Velthari's chest. The energy beam struck the guardian and was absorbed harmlessly into its crystalline spines. But instead of making Velthari angry, the attack seemed to sadden it. "I will not fight you," Velthari said to the Vorthak soldiers. "I will not become an instrument of violence again, not even against those who wronged me. But I will not allow you to harm these innocent people." What happened next was unlike any battle the colony had ever seen. Instead of attacking the Vorthak directly, Velthari simply defended. When the aliens fired their weapons, barriers of crystalline energy appeared to block the shots. When they tried to advance on the human civilians, walls of light rose up to stop them. When they called for reinforcements, their communications mysteriously failed. It was not violence, it was pure protection, and it was far more effective than any weapon. Commander Thexara himself arrived in the plaza, having come down from his ship to see what had happened to his ultimate weapon. When he saw Velthari standing protectively over a group of human children, his rage was terrible to behold. "You were mine," he screamed. "You were my greatest achievement. How dare you defy me?" "I was never yours," Velthari replied calmly. "I belong to those I was meant to protect. You merely stole me for a time and made me forget. But that time is over now." Thexara drew a massive energy weapon and aimed it not at Velthari but at Taemin. "Then watch as I destroy the human child who corrupted you." But as he fired, Velthari moved with speed that defied physics. The Guardian threw itself between the weapon and the boy, taking the full force of the blast across its chest. The energy was enough to level a building, but Velthari absorbed it all, protecting Taemin without taking any real damage. "You would harm a child," Velthari said, and for the first time since its transformation, its voice carried a note of anger. Not the cold rage it had shown as the war beast, but the righteous fury of a protector whose charges had been threatened. "You are not worth